In this video, we are going to talk about viewport shading. If we go to the top right corner, we can see that we have four options here. We have wireframe, we have solid, we have material preview, and we have rendered viewport shading. Now, we are currently in our solid viewport shading, and I'm going to turn around these three objects to give you a sense of what we are looking at. So right now, if I, for example, take this cube, which has a base color of red, we're not seeing that red color, we are just seeing a solid shape. Now, if I were to go to material preview, suddenly the colors and materials will, as the name suggests, show. We also have render preview. This gives us a good idea of how the light and shadows will work and give us a better understanding of how the final render might look like. Now, the moment you turn this on, your GPU or CPU, depending on your computer, is going to start rendering your viewport. So this can be heavy depending on your settings. That's something that we're going to cover later, but for now, know that if you turn this on and your computer suddenly takes off and you hear all the fans spinning, it's because it's doing a rendered view of your viewport. Now, each of these have their own settings. For example, underneath rendered, we can turn on scene lights and scene world. We can change our wire color, our render pass, and our compositor. For now, don't worry about what these mean, but it's good to know that you have multiple options. If you go to material preview, we have different options. And the same is true for our solids. And this is the one that I want to cover for now, because most of the options are here, and solids is also the shading that you're going to use most of the time when doing 3D modeling. Now, at the top, we can choose what kind of lighting we want in our scene. We can choose from studio, matcap, or flat. Flat, as the name suggests, is flat shading. So you're not really seeing any shadows or details. Underneath studio, we currently have the default lighting setup, but we can choose from basic, outdoor, paint, rims, and last but not least, studio. So each of these use a different lighting setup, and you can see that it really does affect how your object looks like. Now, underneath matcap, we have different studio light setups that can give you a different idea of how your model behaves. This can be handy if you want to test something or if you want to see a certain effect. By using matcaps, you get a good understanding of, for example, how skin would behave or how a jaded material would look like. Clay, for example. So these can all be handy later down the road when you're, for example, modeling a car. Most of the time, people use the clay when sculpting, and you probably have seen it online. And one of the other ones specific for us for a certain task. For now, we can go back to studio and just leave it at that. Underneath our lighting, we have the wire color, which we're going to leave on random for now. We have color, which gives us the option to decide what we want to show. For now, it's a material. This means that it's going to show the material color. We can choose object, which would show the object color, or an attribute, or single, or even random, which gives every object a random color. Behind it, we have a background. We can choose from theme, world, or viewport. You will learn how to edit your background later, but for now, it's good to know that you can adjust it. We also have a few more options here. We can turn on depth of field, cavity, shadow, X-ray, which shows you the backside of your model, and back face culling. Now, if you turn on back face culling and you're not seeing anything, What backface culling does, and this is something important to know, if you have a polygon or if you have a face, it's always a one-sided direction. So it's a one-sided material, if that makes sense. So imagine if you're in an integration room where there is that glass where people can look through. Faces only are see-through through one side, and the other side is the material. So if I were to go to the back side now, you see that it's invisible. So by turning on backface culling, you get to see how it would look when rendered or in a different software. You can leave it off if you have a good understanding of how of the direction that your face is pointing, but if not, you can always turn it on to get a sense of what it does. So thanks to these 4 viewport shadings that we can choose from, we can get a good understanding of how our world looks like, how materials behave, if there are some errors in our models that we're not noticing right away, and we can adjust accordingly from there. So try to play around with these. Feel free to play with these settings in the matcap and the studio. You can try to use different scenes if you want. And you can see what happens if you turn on scene light or scene world. Once you're ready, I'll see you in the next video.